Which topics are you scared of? Geometry, I'm guessing, is one of them.
Modern maths also.
Combinations.
Modern maths.
Number system.
Yeah, modern math. Yeah. All right. Should we start or do we wait?
Yeah, I think we can start. Has Avi joined?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes.
Yeah, he's here.
Yeah. So hi everyone, welcome to the final session of ABCs of making it to ABC. So this session will focus on quantitative ability, the third section of the CAT. Primarily me, Bhaskar and Avi would be taking the session, but yes, everyone else on the panel is also there. I think everyone here on the panel, because that question does come, has a 99 plus in this section, which wasn't the case with VARC and all, but Quant is, I think, consistently something which this panel has done something right. And we also have 100% DILR here who can, really notch things up when it comes to strategy. So I'll just present my screen and, just let you know how we'll go about this session. Let me know if my screen is visible.
Yeah, it is.
Yes, it's up.
Yeah,
Yes, it's up.
just a second. The slideshow is getting stuck. Just a second. Yeah. So these are the various topics that we'll be going through in this section, giving you a brief overview and then moving on to the nitty-gritties of what is quants for the benefit of the larger audience. We assume that most of you know, but still we'll just touch upon it briefly. And then the difficulty level, what are the scores, a suggested timeline on how to crack till November. And then also we shared some sample practice questions with you before the session. So we'll be taking you our approach of doing them and then some other things that we have in line for you all. So, second, I think this is just getting stuck. I'm really sorry for this technical glitch. It's fine. I'm not putting it on slideshow mode. I think it's visible, right? This way as well.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So quant is the third section of the exam. And why we have put this as the first point is not to state the obvious, but to tell you all that there is a reason why we have put this here. We've put this here to make you guys understand that quant is the third section. And when you give sectionals and when you give mocks, you are already kind of into the paper for 80 minutes. And you've done VRC, which is very verbose. You've done DILR. Nowadays, DILR sets are also becoming kind of verbose. One page full sets are coming. And then with that mindset, with your performance, you enter into the QA section. So that's very important. And we'll be discussing how to deal with the baggage that people tend to carry when they go into the QA section in the CAT. This is a reality that it can be the most scoring section. It is a section where you can go the most prepared. There is an element of uncertainty in both VRC, RCs, and DILR sets, but QA typically will not throw a lot of surprises if you are well prepared. It is going to test your quantitative skills. The section itself is called quantitative ability and not aptitude. It is just testing whether you're able to deal with numbers, and that's normal maths. Some basic details. In the past 3 years, the paper has been for 2 hours, so 40 minutes. In the last two editions, 22 questions have come, out of which 14 are MCQs and 8 are theta questions, which is type in the answer type questions. Next, moving on to the syllabus, this is actually the CAT does not release it, but basis past years and our experiences, this has been broadly the topics which the section will cover. Arithmetic has all of these topics, and then algebra, then geometry, number systems, and modern maths. These topics typically are the topics from which questions have come in the exam. We haven't really seen anything beyond this coming into the exam. For example, calculus, that's the topics which people study in 11th, 12th, especially engineers. That has not typically been tested in CAT for I don't know how many years. This deck, I think, will be shared, so we'll not go into the details of reading it out. Weightage across the editions, I think this is an important chart we are trying to show. So as you can see, there are some common themes, but there are differences as well. So arithmetic, algebra, and geometry, yes, typically would make up 70% of your paper in an ideal scenario, but their split within does change. So in 2021, arithmetic was dominant. 50% of the paper, that is 11 questions, were coming from arithmetic, but that wasn't the case this year when the questions actually dropped to 8 or 9. That varies across the 3 slots. And then algebra and arithmetic actually were equal, which is why, as we'll show you in the next slide, there is a certain dip in the scores and the percentile mapping in 2022 because algebra weightage increased. And so there were 8 each questions in arithmetic and algebra this year in CAT. And then geometry had about 3 to 4, that varies in the slots, and number systems, modern maths together had about 3 or 4 odd questions. So that's been typically the weightage. Again, I think we are seeing this again and again, but it's important that this is all indicative. CAT is unpredictable. It can be the case that 2023 CAT has geometry as 40%. You get 5-6 questions from geometry. It is possible. And it has happened earlier as well. So one needs to be prepared, but these are typically the splits that we saw in the last 2 years. Moving on, I think, Avi, would you want to take this up?
Yeah. So this score versus percentile, the reason for showing this is giving you a slightly better idea on how much you need to score. And since all of us have at least 99 percentile, if you just look at the scores, CAT 2020, the number of questions were slightly higher, around 26 questions, and that's why the 99 percentile score is at 44. But if you look at last year and last year, that's roughly 11 to 12 questions that you need to do correctly to get a 99 percentile. The third row is the one that I want to really highlight, because 11 to 12 questions in 40 minutes implies a 3.5 minutes per question. And even the slowest people can sort of solve the easiest questions in 3.5 minutes. In the later on slides, we'll also show you that the number of easy questions across these years, if you just solve the easy questions, you're easily clearing the 99 percentile cutoff. Forget about 99 percentile. If you're targeting something lower to begin with, 90 percentile stands at 17-18 marks. That's 6 questions. And 6 questions out of 20 questions in 40 minutes, I think should be fairly doable. So quant is always going to be a section that is very predictable in terms of skill level. So if you get a question, you get it right, there's a higher chance that it will be the right answer. Secondly, it will always be the section that pulls your overall score up or higher. So if you manage to get a 95, 94 percentile or 96 percentile in verbal, because there's a lot of volatility in that score. In DILR also, let's say you manage to get 97, 98 percentile, the quant score is what is going to pull your overall percentile up. This is what happened with me as well. So my verbal score was around 97 percentile. My DILR score was 99, about 99, and my quant score actually pulled the overall percentile higher. I think it happened for quite a lot of us. So this is a section that, like Anirudh mentioned, it's the third section, so you're already tired by that time. But just going by the easy questions, like you solve the easy questions first and you answer them correctly, should land you overall, should land you in the 99 percentile plus range, at least in this section. So this is critical. Even 99.9 percentile in CAD, in QA, I could not get a 99.9 percentile in QA. I got a 99.84. And that's still 47 questions, like 47 marks, 47, 49 marks. Consider that as 15 questions correct. So if I'm just solving 15 questions out of 20, 22 questions in 40 minutes, that still gives me more than 2 minutes per question. So it really is doable when we say that, quant score is going to pull your overall score up. A lot of people from the commerce background get scared because they just feel that it's too difficult. It is really not that difficult to do.
Yeah, I think I can vouch for it. To give perspective to things, I actually have the highest percentile in QA this year. I have a 99.38, which is my highest across the 3 sections. And that's a huge gap that I filled in back in my first attempt in 2020. It was a 94 point something, and it increased to 99. And I think it's the fear, which we'll touch upon later, that kind of restricts people. But again, this is the section where you can be the most comfortable in, provided you've done your preparation and you are in that right mindset.
Yeah.
I would just like to add one thing here. In my experience, I have always been the kind of person who like solves around 13 to 14 questions in the quant section. And it's not that I cannot go for the all 20 or 22, but the point is that in your lust for going for the maximum, you end up committing very stupid mistakes on the exam day and you end up scoring more in the negatives. So like, if you want to be like really careful and if you like just want to limit yourself to even 13 questions, that's like about 3 minutes per question, that fetches you a very good percentile, very good overall score. Going in with a greedy approach because you want for quant to compensate for other sections is something I personally do not recommend.
I agree with Sarthak on this. Like if you are if your overall goal is to attempt all 22 questions, but you're doing that at the cost of just hurrying through all of the questions and then solving them so fast that you're not able to even consider if this is the right answer and if there are any calculation mistakes. Don't do that, because the negative marks in quant should be very rare. Like you should easily cross 80% accuracy in the quant section. For me personally, I would generally hate it even if 1 or 2 questions would go wrong, because that's time actually wasted, right? Because I spent time on it, I solved it, yet I got it wrong. So there's something that's to be corrected. But like Sarthak said, if you choose the questions well, then you can easily cross 99 percentile in Q.
And I think just to add to this, like I figured this out a bit later, but I think you need to understand that getting 1 question wrong out of 10, the accuracy is pretty much good. It's okay to look at things from a percentage perspective. The 9 out of 10 is a 90% accuracy. But please try and understand it. If you get an MCQ wrong, let's forget about the theta for now. Even if you spend time, if you get an MCQ wrong, that's not a -1. That's a delta of 4 marks against someone who got that question right. So you just not lose the 3 that you could have gotten right, you lose 1 extra. So that's a 4 marks downfall. And that really hurts your score. So someone scoring a 30 and 34, there is going to be a considerable gap in the percentile. So you always should be wary of your attempts in QA, because QA is going to be, it's like simple maths. The answer is there and there is only 1 right answer in most cases.
Yeah. And just to highlight that 4 marks difference, you can see it from QA in last year, and 99.9 percentile and 5 percentile, there's a 4-mark gap, and also between 99 and 98 percentile, there's a 4-mark gap. So that's one person doing one question correctly and the other person doing that same question wrong. And it brings on a lot of difference there. So yeah, I think we can move on to the next slide.
Yeah. Maybe Bhaskar, you want to take this up?
Yeah, sure. So as we were saying that QA of CAT is just class 10th level maths, not the JEE maths. So commerce background and non-engineers don't think that only engineers can crack QA with a high percentile. I know many non-engineers, many of my friends who have done better than me. Avi, Sarthak, Mridul is a 100 percentiler, Saparno in QA. Okay, so don't fear that you cannot do. And the most of the topics you have done this in your class 10. Okay, so it is also not something new. Plus there is one more thing, like in VARC and DILR, you have to read a passage or a set and then you get questions. But for QA, each question is individual. So in QA, leaving the questions, finding the easy questions is comparatively easier as compared to DILR or VARC. Okay. And have the faith in yourself and trust in your efforts. I think it is one of the most important things for any aspirant to have. Okay, and like the timeline, as we have mentioned before also, 5 to 6 months is more than enough. So even if you are starting your CAT journey today, you can do it. Okay, and one more thing I would like to highlight, like if you believe you can do it, you will see the opportunities. Whether you are working 12 hours, 16 hours, whether you are attending colleges, whether there are exams, anything, you will find the time if you are willing to do it. You will take out time. While you are traveling to office, perhaps in the bus or in the auto, you are reading. Okay. And if you are not willing to do it, then you will see only excuses. Okay. Anirudh, can you move to the next slide?
Yeah.
Okay. So this has been the distribution of easy, medium, and tough. Like over the years, what we have seen is the paper comprises of easy, 70% to 80% of the paper is comprised of easy and medium level questions. The tough questions are 20 or 30%, which we don't need to worry. Now the fluctuations in the easy and the medium level questions happens, and because of which the percentile, like for a 99 percentile last year it was 37 marks, this year it was 33. So a question or two it drops. It is because of the easy and medium. Now how do you approach? So suppose you attempt all the easy questions, you get it correct. Okay, and in the medium level question you just need to do 50% of them. So in every slot, like for this year, if you will see 100% easy questions and 50% of the medium questions, those are around 13 to 14 questions, and 13 to 14 questions net correct gives you a 99.5 percentile in an ideal scenario. Okay, so try to focus solving, getting all the easy questions correct and around 50% of the medium level questions correct.
Yeah, I think that's there. But just one thing I want to add here, and which obviously we'll touch upon later when we talk about strategies, and everyone can have their, all the panelists here can also pitch in. These easy, medium, tough is 80% stagnant, 20% relative. So just take that with a pinch of salt. I think there is someone who is very, very comfortable with PNC, permutations and combinations, might find that question very, very doable. And although that question might be categorized as tough, given that out of a sample size of 1,000, maybe only 100 or maybe 50 folks even attempted that question. That's why it's categorized as tough. But take it with a pinch of salt. The easy, medium, tough does not remain same for everyone in QA. That's same. That's the same mantra for all three sections. No set in DILR is easy or difficult. And similarly, no question in QA is also easy or difficult. You have to take that with a pinch of salt. Yeah.
I think we can move on to the next.
Yeah.
Right. So we have already covered this in the overall session, but just for the sake of completion, I'll reiterate it and I'll mention a few more points that are very QA specific. So in QA, you can follow this timeline to the last T, whatever they call it, right? When you're clearing the basic concepts, your effort should be to get comfortable with the concepts. So what will happen is during the D-Day, if you look at all the top, I don't know, 1,000, 2,000 people, if you give them enough time, all of them can solve all the questions with 100% accuracy. I can safely vouch for that. So is the difference coming from not being able to solve a question? No, it's not. It's not that people are not able to solve that question. It's that the people are not able to solve a particular question in that time frame. And this is the difference, right? So when I say the first stage is completing the concepts, I mean that you have to be as comfortable with every topic that you can solve almost 80 to 90% of the problems with 100% accuracy, given enough time, right? So if I give you a question, you should be able to solve it if I'm not placing any time constraint on you. And clearing the basic concepts, and since there are not a lot of concepts, and we've already covered this like in till the 10th standard, it should not take you a lot of time to get the basics concepts cleared and practice a few questions until you get comfortable. But we'll give you around 1.5 months from, let's say, today to finish this particular stage, right? Then the second stage is again competing with yourself. So Quant is one section where your scores can increase almost pretty linearly. And at one point it will stagnate when your attempts and when your accuracy is sort of stagnating and your attempts aren't going up. And that's a good stage to reach. But in QA, this is the most controllable section. So competing with yourself is one of the key stages where you're constantly trying to better yourself and you're not looking at other people's score so far. Competing with yourself can also be done with the aid of sectionals. Now I understand that this is the third section and the mental tiredness that comes after two sections, you cannot accommodate for that in a sectional test. But at least to get an approximate sense of your competency with each subject or each topic, sectional tests can help here. Right? Then competing with others. And for competing with oneself, I'll say till mid-August. So from around mid-July to about mid-August, you compete with yourself. Then you start competing with others. So now you start looking at other people's methods of how they're solving the same question. And what happens generally is 90% of the people will solve the question using the same method, because either they're not aware of other methods or they're not putting in the effort to find out if there are any other methods to solve the same question. And trust me, there are multiple ways to solve a question. And you spend about till end of October to mid-November in competing with others stage. And yeah, it's almost self-explanatory. And then you relax and revise till CAT. And the key thing here to remember is that choosing the right questions is half the battle won in Quant. And we'll then come to how you can choose the right questions. So that's the timeline you can follow.
Yeah, I think just one point I wanted to add here is that, especially targeted to the audiences which are not very comfortable with QA, as I wasn't initially. What I did was I went, because it was not much of an ability issue than a phobia and a mental block in my mind. So what I did was I went on and prepared the notes, and that's when the conceptual clarity came. So even if you, irrespective if you're joining coaching or whatever, it's always good to have not necessarily formulae, but certain tips and tricks which help you remember the deal, which help you remember the concepts, and you can actually kind of, because once you've prepared the notes from your own hand, you kind of remember them. So I actually prepared all the notes, and especially topics like geometry, which are very, very intensive. Like their breadth is quite large. But again, you can't leave these topics because, as we'll show in the sample questions, you actually can get a very simple question from these topics and then you regret leaving them. So it's important to cover everything, and completing the basic concepts in QA is actually a very important stage. Like it could be that you can straight away start with the VARC mocks if you, just to understand, but you cannot just go in a QA sectional if you don't know the concepts. It will be really, really depressing. So that stage is, I think, by far the most important in all the three sections.
I would like to highlight just one more thing, that don't think of leaving any topic, because suppose the topic you are leaving and easiest questions of the paper come from those topics, then you will be out of fear not reading it and missing out on it. So cover the basics of every topic and don't think of leaving any topics. At least the basics you should know.
And I think most of the people lose marks, or if you don't get marks in quant, not because of an ability shortage in ability, but or skill, but because of this mental barrier that they have that, my quant is not good at all for some odd reason, right? It might happen a lot more frequently with non-engineering students, but it's like some mental barrier that they have, which has no basis actually. It's just that the world around them says that, so they also start saying it. But you have to realize that if you're able to do VARC and DILR correctly, quant is much more controllable. So there is no scope for, having the same mental blockage that my quant is weak. So yeah.
Cool.
We can move on. Right. Now coming to attempt strategy. Now attempt strategy is probably the most important part in QA, because like we're saying, this is the most controllable bit. Now, first thing and the most important thing to remember is every person is different. So every person's attempt strategy will be different. We'll tell you 3 different attempt strategies now. I'll start with mine, then Anirudh will tell his strategy, and then Bhaskar will tell his strategy. You'll realize that none of these 3 strategies are intersecting in any manner. Like mine and Bhaskar's are a little more close to each other. Anirudh's strategy is very different. It's not that one strategy is right or the other is wrong. It's that you have to develop your own strategy. We are telling our strategies so that you have a reference point, right? So don't copy our strategy. It might so happen that you eventually end up with the same strategy as maybe one of us, and that's fine. But try to figure out through trial and error what your own strategy should be. Okay. Now, next slide. Right. So this is my strategy. It's called the ABC strategy. A implies those questions that you have to do right now. So abhi karo. B implies those questions which you can do it, but it will take you a little more time. And C is those questions that you have no idea about, right? Now, when I look at a question, I will firstly not look at the size of the question, because that's one way a question setter can fool you. They'll give you a very lengthy question, but perhaps it is a very simple and formula. Just, you input the formula and then the answer is right there. Or they have given too much extra information that shouldn't ideally be there, but they're trying to fool you. So never consider the length of a question as as an indicator of A, B, or C bucket. So I would read the question completely, right? Now, this is key, because what many people do is, this is a mistake, that when they see a question, they read the first line and then they start jotting down the points. As in they'll jot, let's say the first line says that, Ram is traveling at 12 kilometers per hour, right? They'll write Ram, they'll write 12 kilometers per hour. Okay. Then they'll read the second line, then they'll read third line and keep jotting down the points. What is happening now is you have not yet decided whether to attempt this question or not, but you've already spent time in writing this information down. And if you think that writing this information down will take you like hardly a few seconds, no, it will take you a lot more time. because reading the question in its entirety versus jotting down every single point or a few points will take you at least 15-20 seconds extra at the minimum. And that's a lot of time in quant, right? So first thing to remember is read the entire question properly, first of all. The first decision that you have to make is whether or not I should attempt this right away. Now, how do you decide that, right? When you see a question, firstly, you'll have an idea of whether or not you'll be able to solve it. Let's say you're not able to solve it, you have no clue. Then it's obviously a C category question. The real battle is between A versus B category, right? Now, if you have solved a similar question in the past, and chances are that there will be many such cases where you've solved similar questions, you'll have an idea how much time it will take you to solve this, right? Time, speed, distance, at least for me, time, speed, distance questions used to be a little lengthy because there were some calculations involved. So I would generally keep them in B category rather than A category. Since I was good with quants, in A, I would choose those questions that could be done in under 90 seconds. And this includes the reading time of the question. So I would try to take like minimal usage of pen as little as possible. And I would only write down stuff that I needed, my brain couldn't hold in. So I would do most of the process thinking in my head and only write down the calculation bit. Right? That was type A. Type B is I know how to do it, but I'm not so sure if it can be done in under 90 seconds. So I would place that in type B. And then type C is I don't know how I can do it. Like I have no idea at all. Or if I partially know how I'll do it, and then after a certain point I don't know, and those questions will fall under type C. So that was my attempt strategy. On the time bit, I used to do around 2 questions. Sorry, every 2 minutes I would do 1 question. So for the first 10 minutes, 5 questions would be over. Another 10 minutes, 5 more questions. Eventually, I would have around 19 to 20 or maybe 21 attempts by the end of the paper. So that was my attempt strategy. I think Anirudh, you can do next.
Yeah. I think so for me, my strategy was to go from 1 to 22 or 22 to 1. And it was because I through my preparation, I gave the CAT thrice. And but every time my QA improved, and this time it improved considerably because I formulated a perfect strategy which worked for me. And what that was that I kind of realized during my mocks and sectionals that in any kind of level of difficulty paper, my speed is 13 to 16 questions. That is my level of attempting the question. And I think as Sarthak also mentioned, and we have shown in the table that 13 to 16 is not a bad. What people think that, you need to get 18 questions, 17 questions correct to get a good percentile. Yes, I mean, if you get 18, 19 questions, you will probably be one of the toppers of QA. But if you're looking at targeting the 99 or maybe even the 99.5th percentile, a 13 to 16 range can actually get you that. And I kind of did that research and figured out that this is my sweet spot. And that strategy was, so I also tried this multiple round strategy and everything. But what worked for me was that I could not actually come back for round 3. I had to, because my speed wasn't as much. And for me, accuracy was paramount, as we already discussed that, that delta of 4 marks is very hurtful. So I made sure that I will not take a -1, I'll take a 0. I'll sacrifice a +3, but I'll definitely not take a -1 in this section. So for me, I figured out that since I covered all the basic concepts, it wasn't so much of a topic phobia. So then you have to get over it. So my strategy was to go for 1 to 22 or 22 to 1. Now, why 22 to 1 is an option is what I would want to touch upon. Especially this used to happen in the mocks. This actually happened to me in one of the CAT editions as well. I think if I'm not wrong, it was CAT 2021, wherein the first 3-4 questions were bouncers for me. They came as a bouncer. I could not solve them. And the clock was ticking. It was already 7-8 minutes up, and there was literally no attempt in my section. And that affects you very badly when you are in the exam. You need to have that confidence, that pepped up in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the paper in those 40 minutes, because 40 minutes pass by very quickly. So it's important that you compose and gather yourself. So for me, it was important that I get at least 3 to 4 questions in the first 10 minutes, typically 4, and that boils down to 2.5 minutes per question. And that's why if I was able to see that, okay, 1, 2, 3, I'm not able to solve, I would straight away go to 22 and start solving in the reverse order. A lot of times this actually worked because quite a lot of times the paper setter has set some of the low hanging fruits in the last, which kind of makes it very easy for aspirants to leave them out if you go from 1 to 22. So that also works. So this was my strategy, and I did not attempt the paper in rounds. What I used to do was I used to treat each question irrespective of the length, and I used to give it about 30 seconds. And 30 seconds was that time for me to read and make that decision of whether I'm attempting it now, skipping it, marking it for review, or altogether skipping it. Is there someone on unmute? I think there is some disturbance I'm getting.
Yeah, Shreyas.
Yeah, it's better. So, so that is very important. And I don't have the screenshot yet. Maybe we can share it in the group. In CAT, when you actually write the mocks, there are the question palette has 3 colors: green, red, and purple. So green is for the questions that you have attempted. Red is the questions which you have seen but have not attempted. And purple are the questions which you mark for review. That is the question that you've seen and you've not really decided on. And this palette I used very effectively in my mocks and actual CAT as well. And that is what this means. So attempting right now would turn green, obviously. And then skip later means I'll mark this question for review and I'll visit it later, because I feel I can do it. I've spent about 40-50 seconds, but I don't have the time to do it right now. And skip is a question where I make that decision that this question I wouldn't be able to solve in the exam scenario. So that is a red for me directly. And again, I think for me, again, accuracy was paramount. Obviously, speed is important, but then, as I said, I would rather sacrifice a +3 for a -1. And how I used to divide the section was 35 plus 5, 30, and actually 34 plus 5. So I used to, when DILR used to get over, I used to take 30 seconds break. I did not used to start with QA immediately because my mind does not switch so easily. So I took that 30 seconds break and then I started. And then I used to always keep 5 minutes at the end, once I'm done with 22 questions, for 2 kinds of questions. One, I would look at questions which are marked for review. I would typically not mark for review more than 2 to 3 questions, because if you are marking every second or third question as marked for review, then the utility of that function diminishes, right? So for example, if I've done first 2 questions, I skipped the third, I marked 4th for review, and then I again mark 6th, 8th, 10th for review. I don't have so much time to go and review. So you have to use these things cautiously as well, keeping a tap of time. And the remaining time, and in the last, I also used to reserve at least 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, to make calculated guesses for theta questions. Theta is the type and type answer where you don't get any negative. And if I've not attempted that question, I would still mark some answer which I feel could be right. And that actually used to click in some of the mocks. It didn't actually go click for me in the CAT, but I've heard that it does work out. And you should attempt theta questions, irrespective of whether you know them or not, because you don't lose out on anything. And you might just get a +3. So that was broadly my strategy. I think over to you, Bhaskar. I'll just present the next slide.
Okay. So my strategy also is pretty similar to Avi's strategy. Okay. Now in QA, don't think as one, like divide the 40 minutes into 4 parts of 10 minutes each. Okay. And as per the number of questions, guys, can you please stop asking questions currently? It's kind of distracting. Okay. So divide the 40 minutes into 4 parts of 10 minutes. And as per the number of questions you are targeting, if you are targeting 12 to 13 questions, then try to solve 3 questions in every 10 minutes. If you are targeting 16 questions, try to solve 4 questions in every 10 minutes, and so on. Okay. Now, it is also very important to not get emotionally attached to any questions. Like, I know sometimes it has happened with me also, and I'm sure it has happened with Avi also. Like, the topics in which we are strong. Sometimes a question comes and we are making a mistake, but we can't see the mistake and we get emotionally attached and waste the time there. So this should not happen. Now, I try to attempt the paper in 3 rounds. So my selection of questions for me was much more dependent on the topics on which I was comfortable with. Okay, so like for example, in round 1, mostly I attempted the algebra part because for me it did not take time to solve. Geometry questions, sometimes they give very straight geometry questions. PMC questions also, easy questions come generally. So for me, these were the topics I would try to attempt in round 1. For round 2, like medium level and time consuming, like simple interest, compound interest, they are generally easy, but you need to do the calculations. Okay, so it kind of sometimes becomes a time consuming. Time, speed, and distance, again easy, but you need to work out. So those kind of topics for me were in round 2. And in round 3, if any difficult question is left and I get time, then I used to attempt those. So like more or less, you can tweak it also. But like we had mentioned earlier also, no strategy is perfect. And it's not that the 3 strategies which we have shared, you have to apply one of those only. You can make your own strategy also. You need to find what works best for you in the exam scenario. Like I was very comfortable in solving questions mentally also outside the exam hall. Okay, but in the exam hall I could not. Like even if I could, I will write the thing on the paper. Okay, so it did not make sense for me to while attempting mocks or sectionals to solve the questions mentally. Okay, so tweak your strategy as per your exam environment.
Yeah, I think I just forgot to add 1 or 2 points, so I'll just add that in general. I think first is that a lot of, when I was preparing for CAT, I actually heard a lot of tutors and, they come up in those video solutions of all the mocks and they used to, and in all those sessions of cracking the CAT and QA, they used to tell that, you should completely avoid using the on-screen calculator. Like that was the advice which I actually received from a lot of people, even some of my seniors who are in, who cracked CAT. And they said that, you should try to, not use the on-screen calculator. And while that advice can actually work and might have worked, it's not like a thumb rule again, because for me, actually, there were a couple of questions where the numbers were quite large and it's not really possible to do mental maths if you're not into that, if you're not naturally very good at mental calculations. So please don't hesitate in using the on-screen calculator, but definitely the on-screen calculator, if for those who have given mocks, know that it's not the most smooth. You have to click on the mouse and everything, and it's a bit difficult to get used to it. So but during your mocks and all, you should start getting used to these things, that it's okay to use a calculator just to verify that your calculation is correct, especially if the number is coming, especially a very weird number or a very large number. So you should keep on inculcating these practices while you are doing the sectionals and the mock tests, because you can't magically assume that this would translate into CAT. And secondly, in terms of, I think, minimizing the usage of paper, I think that's extremely important, because especially for first-time takers or people who don't know, CAT just gives one small notepad, which has about, I think, 20 leaves total, I think, front and back. And you have that notepad, and you just have one colored pen also. So that's the notepad that you get for the exam. So you don't get multiple colors and multiple sheets. They don't give you that. So one needs to be judicious, because you're going to use the same notepad for DILR and QA, even if you don't touch it for VARC. So you need to be cautious in how much you're writing, and that skill development needs to happen during the mock and sectional practice.
But I think CAT gives enough leaves. Like the notepad is enough. No one fills it completely.
Yeah, I actually saw a couple of people requesting for it during the CAT, and they did not allow it.
Yeah, just use your space judicially.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, should we go to the sample questions next?
I think If you want, we can share our personal stories.
Yeah,
Uh,
let's do that, and then we can maybe return to this bit.
Sure, sure. So on the QA section for at least for me in CAT 2021, that spoiled the whole paper for me, because like I said, it would pull your entire score up, and in CAT 2021 in VARC, you really don't know how well or how bad you perform. In DILR also, I was able to solve decently, but in QA, what had happened was my speed was pretty high, so I used to attempt like 5-6 questions in the first 10 minutes. Now, what happened was in my slot, the questions themselves were not that difficult, but the questions were lengthy and they used to take a lot more time. And in the context of my strategy, a lot more B type questions were there and a lot less A type questions were there. So even though they were easy, they would take a lot more time. So while I was looking for A type questions, I sort of skimmed through the entire paper and found almost zero or maybe 1 or 2 A questions. So I was naturally tensed because generally for me, A type questions are maybe 10, maybe 11. So I would, then I panicked and I was able to solve maybe 2 or 3 questions in the first 10-11 minutes. And that panic carried on for the entire paper. Eventually, I was able to solve 11 or 12 questions. And had I solved like 2 or 3 more questions, I would have easily gotten a much better percentile. But basically, this A, B, C type questions, categorizing them, don't be too rigid that, in the entire mock season, only 10 questions have, generally 10 questions have fit into category A or category B or category C. Don't be too rigid on the number of questions that generally come under these buckets. You should be flexible enough to sort of manipulate your own strategy during the CAT. And yeah, so that's what happened. This time, also the quant section was not that simple. It was a little lengthy. And I made some mistakes, but I made those mistakes in theta questions only. So there were no negative marks as such. And I ensured that I do not panic in that section because some changes are bound to happen and you have to get acclimatized to those changing scenarios. Anirudh, you
Yeah.
want to share your story?
I think when I first time went for CAT, I think I really didn't. I had a very huge phobia of QA. I think for me, as a again, I think that typical non-engineering phobia that you're appearing with engineers and they are like typically people very adept to mathematics. Although I don't think engineers have studied simple interest, compound interest in their education, but that still that mindset is there. That they have an edge. And that really gets you down. And I think for me, what happened is that phobia of not having a strategy, following other people's strategy, basically, trying to replicate the round strategy like Bhaskar or Ravi did, which is not something which is up my comfort zone. So I think that is where the whole thing derailed. I tried to replicate that rounds. Okay, I need to that created a pressure. 10 minutes okay, I haven't scanned through the exam. That's not how it's supposed to be. And that kind of derailed the performance. And secondly, what derailed is I had slot 2 in CAT 2020 and it's DILR. DILR was typically a decent section for me. But that year, I don't know what happened. The DILR seemed very difficult for CAT 2020 slot 2 for me. I carried that baggage to QA and coupled with not having a perfect strategy, completely derailed that section. And I got a 94, which really dripped my entire because my other 2 sections were quite good. So I think not carrying the baggage was a very major part of my preparation throughout CAT 2022 season. You should definitely try to unwind yourself with VRC and DILR. I mean, first it's done. You really can't do anything about it, even if you have not done well. And I personally know people who are joining. I think we all know people who are joining these schools. We don't have that much of skewed, but we also have instances where people have like an 80, 85 in one section, but a killer 99 plus, which has fetched them their really best B school calls, like among the top 6 IIMs or FMS or the best CAT taking B schools out there. So it's not really, the battle is not lost until you lose it. And that's where you don't really need to take the baggage. You need to tell yourself that QA is another exam. CAT is 3 exams basically. VRC is separate, DILR is separate, QA is separate. it's irrespective, even if you get, I remember a girl literally crying after DILR and QA had started and she was crying in the CAT exam. And she was just sitting next to me. And thankfully, I wasn't able to get distracted, but that does happen. The pressure gets to you and the baggage does get to you. And that is an important part of the preparation, which I cannot overemphasize upon, but I think everyone here will agree to this. I think maybe Bhaskar,
Yeah.
Sopando, Mridul, you have
So,
tips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think one point which we have missed is like speed versus accuracy, what we should choose. So like my story, I will tell you and you will get the answer. So it was in CAT 2020 QA section. I was going aggressive in the QA section as I normally do, but the section was a bit tricky. Like the options framing and the question framing, they were framed in a tricky way. Okay, so I attempted 22 questions and I think I got 8 wrongs, and out of which 6 were MCQs, so -6. Now I ended up with a raw score of 36. That is just 12 questions net correct. So I think don't compromise with the accuracy in trying to improve yours. Focus on the accuracy part. Focusing on the accuracy part is important. Speed is the byproduct. It will happen with practice. You don't need to try to improve your speed. Just focus on getting the questions correct for the time.
yeah, and just to add on to that point, if you look at it from the timeline perspective, uh, till you're getting comfortable and till you're increasing your own score, uh, you should be focusing more on accuracy and rather than on speed. Because if you get accuracy, what will happen is you're getting all the questions right. Sooner you'll realize that okay, I can solve the same question with the same accuracy, probably in lesser time because you've already done it so many times. Then you'll have extra time remaining, right? What do you do in that extra time? Like during the paper, you solve more questions. That's how your attempts go up, right? So till the second stage, till the end of the second stage, you should focus a lot more on accuracy. And as a byproduct, like Bhaskar said, the score will naturally go up and the attempts will naturally go up because you'll soon begin to form connections in your head on how you can solve the same question faster because you've already done it so many times.
Also, like I would like to add, when a paper is tough, then accuracy is the winner. So you can solve, you can have an amazing speed, but your accuracy is not good, then you will be penalized.
Yeah.
And sometimes the paper is made that way that if you solve a lot of questions, you are bound to get a lot incorrect. Sometimes the papers are that tricky in nature. So you really need to figure out what will work for you on that day.
Yeah. So I think Anirudh, we can move on to the sample questions over there.
Yeah. I hope guys you had a you had some time to go through some questions, if not all. Just a second, my screen is loading. I think it should be visible now.
Yeah.
So we have like about 15 questions and not necessarily we'll solve each and every question. We're just going to tell you a brief approach. We will share the solutions to these questions. These are actual past last year, CAT 2022 questions across the 3 slots.
Yeah. So, okay, so we'll start with this one. Thankfully, the 3 of us, Bhaskar, me and Anirudh, we had different slots. So we have 5 questions from each of the slots. Now, this is slot 2, right? In slot 2, when I came across this question, it is firstly, do not care about the length. When I read this question, I read it in its entirety. So regular polygons AB have sides in this ratio, interior angles in this ratio, and the number of sides in B equals 1. Now, since I've solved the not similar questions, but I know this concept, I would choose to not keep it under C. That's the first. That's the second decision. Now, between A and B, I have a fair idea that I can do it in under 90 seconds. So I will firstly keep it under bucket A, and then I'll choose to solve it. Now, how do you solve it? You won't solve it right now, but the simple idea is if your sides are in 1:2 ratio, then your exterior angles are in 2:1 ratio, right? Because you 1 by 360 by the number of sides is the external angle, right? So since it is getting 1 by something, the ratio inverts. So it's 2:1. That's the external angle. And so it's 2x:1x. If the external angle is, let's say 2x, then the internal angle is 180 minus 2x. So it is 180 minus 2x by 180 minus x. This is equal to 3:4. You can find x, you can find the number of sides in B. Right now, have I written any of this shit down? No. I have not used pen or paper till now until I know what process I'll use. And now when I'm writing anything on the piece of paper, it is directly 180 minus 2x by 180 minus x equal to 3:4. Now this saves me a lot more time. And this is like I got to this stage because I have solved this so many times, right? Because I've solved this so many times, all of these calculations are happening inside my head. When I say calculations, I don't mean 37 into 49 is happening inside my head. I mean the process, the steps are happening inside my head. And that comes from practice. That does not come from watching a particular video or going through some
I think
course.
watching video solutions will not help you that, the professor has told you that, this is how it works. No, you need to inculcate that process. And only when you have done it multiple times, will you be able to replicate it in the actual test scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah. Moving on.
Next one. Yeah. This is a typical example of no concept, just raw number putting. And this is a question that if you did not know anything, like have you not solved any questions or had you not gone through any syllabus, even then you would be able to solve it, right? Now it's like you have to find the maximum and minimum possible value of a plus b. Now look at the above equation, a plus 2b equal to 6. The maximum you can put a is 6 and b as 0 because there are non-negative real numbers, right? So a6 b0 is one solution and b3 and a0 is another solution. So you have minimum value of a plus b is 3, maximum is 6, the average is 6 plus 3 by 2, which is 4.5. You don't have to lift a pen here, right? This is how you solve the easy questions first when you come across them, and that's how you save time for the type B questions, right? And this is how we are able to increase the attempts. Can we move to the next one? Yeah, now this one. Now I'm sure a lot of the non-engineering students would look at this and they'll get scared. This is like so many x's there, the square is also there, quadratic hai, wo bhi power mein, this is also in power, and then you have to give equal to 1. I have no idea how to do this. This is a simple application, right? This is something raised to something equal to 1, right? When I say something raised to something equal to 1, think about how you can achieve 1. You can achieve 1 in 3 ways. You can make the power equal to 0. You can make 1 raised to anything equal to 1, or you can make -1 raised to 2 or 4 or any even number equal to 1, right? Which means all you have to do is put 1 equal to x square minus 10, and then x square minus 3x minus 10 equal to 0, and then x square minus 10 equal to -1, and try to solve those questions there. Now I know the process, but I know it will require me to build 3 cases. Like I have to put the exponent equal to 0, exponent equal to whatever, and then the main power equal to 1 and -1. So I know how to solve it, but I know it will take me a little more time. Now by my estimate, I think it will take me a little less, like little more time than 90 seconds. So I'll keep this in type B. I know how to solve it, but I'll keep this in type B. Then we go to the next one. Now this one. This is a typical example of long question, and any person would take a look at this and say, "Bhai, this is a long question. I'll not look at this even," and they would be right in this particular case. But that doesn't mean you should do it this way. This question says there's 75 questions plus 3 minus 1 and -1. No, +3 -1 +1. Okay. And there are 97 total marks. Now I've done this type of question in the past. I know it takes a lot of time because there are 2-3 variables there, right? There's number of correct questions, wrong questions, and then unattempted questions. That's 3 variables. If there are 3 variables, I have to have like 3 equations. I have to think about some unique ways. And then they are also asking the maximum number of correct questions that Ryan could have drawn in the examination. Okay, fine, that's a easy question. But basically, I know only 50% of the answer, right? I know this is an equation that will get formed. After that, I don't know the steps. I know that I will have to look at this question for a long time and then figure out some way to solve it. If given enough time, I can solve it, yes, but I don't know exactly how to do it at the outset. So I will keep this in type C, not A, not B, because I don't know the entire steps. So I'll keep this in type C. I'll attempt this if there are no A or B type questions left. Can we move on to the next one? Yeah, this one. Now this one is again, some people might be scared because this is not from class 10, they're from like functions, which is class 11 or 12. Okay? You have to understand this is a very simple question. All you have to do is look at this, and again, no pens, right? No pen paper. You're saying this is a quadratic polynomial. You're saying this is always greater than or equal to 0. When you read this, if you've gone through the syllabus, you know that the graph always lies above the x-axis. It's an upward sloping graph. It cuts the x-axis only at one point. You're saying f of 2 equal to 0. So 2 is a root. And there are equal roots. So 2 is the only root there is. And you're telling me f of 4 is 6. So this equation will be a into x minus 2 whole square. Now you put 4 in there and you find the value of a, and then you find the value of -2. Again, no pens needed till now. Now I'll write a into x minus 2 whole square equal to 0. This is the equation. I'll put 4. So 4 minus 2, that's 2. 2 square is 4. 4 into what is equal to 6, right? So 1.5. So 1.5 into x minus 2 raised to whole square, raised to the power 2. This is the equation. I'll just put -2 and the job is done. So at what you have to understand, at what point am I starting to write this on a piece of paper? I'm starting to write this when I know the entire process. I'm not lifting my pen when I read the first sentence. I'm not lifting my pen when I read the second sentence also. The steps have to be clear in my head. Otherwise, I'll keep that in type B or in type C. So yeah, that's 5 questions from my slot.
Yeah. So these was so the next 5 questions are from slot 1, and so this is a question which is from geometry. Geometry is a topic which a lot of people feel that it's too vast, we'll skip it and all. But if you look at this question, there could not have been a more simple question that has been asked in CAT. I mean, for me, someone who's not that very good at mental calculations, even I did not lift a pen for this question, because this question is saying that it's a parallelogram. You have 3 vertices. You need to find the 4th vertex coordinates. I think if someone, if you remember, if you have done the basics, we know that parallelogram diagonals intersect and bisect each other at the same midpoint. So it's simply that you already have the coordinates for A and C. You just add them up, or even if you want to go a step ahead, make sure that you're right. You just have the midpoint. And that midpoint, if you put in the equation with B and D, you just have to input the options. So A and C together, if I just add the x coordinate, that is 1 minus 2 minus 1. And -1/2 would be the x coordinate of the midpoint. And B is 3, 4. So B is 3. So I just need to have something plus 3 upon 2, which gives me -1/2. And only option 1 satisfies that, because 3 minus 4 is -1. That's -1/2. I don't even need to look at BCD. I don't even need to look at coordinate Y. I simply mark A and move ahead. It's literally not even a 30 seconds question if you have done enough practice and if you know how you're going to approach the section. So these are the actual low-hanging fruits from a topic like geometry. This is not arithmetic. This is a geometry topic which people consider difficult. But if you take questions basis topics, it might be that you end up losing on, very easy getting 3 marks. Then again, this question is again, I think for me, again, an instant doable question. A, because yes, the topic is very familiar, it's ratio proportion. And B, I think it's a very, very doable question. For me, I could get confused when I take variables. So what I do is I tend to resort to numbers for these kind of questions. What I do is that, okay, lemon juice and sugar are in equal proportion. Let me take them each as 10 and 10. And then if the whole mixture, the new mixture is created by adding this mixture and the sugar syrup in 1:3. So the total mixture that I have is 20. So the sugar syrup I'm adding is 60. So now I need to find out the ratio of lemon juice and sugar syrup. So sugar syrup that I've added is 60, and in the original it was 10. So now the total is 70. Even if I look at the options, there's just 1:7, only one option. And lemon juice is the original 10 that I have. So again, I did not lift anything, no pen. I did not solve anything. I just took numbers, easy numbers to deal with. Don't take numbers like 8 and 8. It might create an issue. Simple numbers like 10, and you get the answer directly. Again, I think this is a question which, okay, you may keep it in B category, in the sense that you might want to look at it, mark for review, and maybe come at it later. But typically, it shouldn't be. For me, it was again an instantly doable question. The average is 13, so the sum has to be 39. That is 13 into 3, 39. And since it's a MCQ question, my job was made much easier. I had this is again a question where you literally go with zero prep, you can do it. 13 into 3, 39, and you have 4 options. Even if you don't want to do anything, you just add one option each, check the average. If it's coming in odd integer, that's your answer. So only 39 plus 5 will give you 44, and 44 when you divide by 4 will give you 11. So that's why the answer is option C here. So again, this is again a question which was very similar to Avi's slot, wherein he said that, you don't really need to know anything here. Even if you just input the options, even if you just use basic sense, you should be able to get these kind of questions. And these are actual CAT questions from last year. Now, this is a question which is easy, but we'll get to a part where you can actually make some errors. So on the face of it, the question is again from a very familiar topic. It's ratio proportions. It's very simple. So Pinky is standing, and then there are people standing in front of her and people standing behind her. They are in the ratio of 3:5. So if you take them as 3x and 5x and include Pinky, so the total number of people is then 8x plus 1. So, and it's given that the total number of people in the queue is less than 300. So that means 8x plus 1 is less than 300. If you solve that, whatever value you'll get some x less than something. But the question that is asked here is not the value of x. That is where, when you start getting excited, okay, so this is a very doable question. I got it. I'll just mark the answer and go ahead. It's very easy to make these errors. Please understand what the examiner has asked. He has asked you the maximum possible number of people ahead. So it's not x, 3x is what has been asked. So it's very easy that, okay, 299 by 8, and that's the nearest integer less to that is the answer. No, you have to multiply that by 3. So the answer to this question would be 3x and not x. So these are small things which the examiner does try to make students fall in the trap. But yeah, you need to be wary of this. And that's why it's important to be completely alert while doing the question.
One more thing, like I would like to add, like sometimes they do, like for arithmetic in compound interest and simple interest. So they will ask what is the amount after 2 years, and in bracket they will write in lakhs. So like many people, while in the theta answers they type 9 and 5 zeros, and then they get 0 marks, and then they realize after the exam that they made a silly mistake, doing everything right, just entering the wrong answer. So try to keep these things in mind, small things.
Yeah, and I think this is another question. Now, this is a kind of question for a person like me who will skip this question. And I think for me, the thought process that works is that set theory, although is not very difficult as a concept, for a QA perspective, for me, it is mostly going to be time consuming. So basis past practice, what I've had. So as an aspirant appearing, for me, the strategy would be to not attempt this question when I can already see that there are doable questions in the examination. So I will not attempt this question actually because set theory will typically take a lot of time. In this case as well, it is not a very direct, simple application of set theory as well. You would need to spend some time, and that's why this for me would be a question that I skip in the exam altogether. We'll definitely send the exact solution. I think the answer for this is option C though, and you'll find the solutions otherwise as well. But yeah, from a strategy point of view, this isn't a question I would be attempting in the exam, and I actually did not attempt it in the
Yeah,
exam.
and I remember spending more than 2 minutes on this one.
Yeah, and I think that actually gets solved through a stacking VARC. That's the best way to solve this kind of question. And the Venn diagram equations can actually land you in a trap for QA. So it's a good bet to attempt in DILR. So for example, the same set with more data points can be asked in a DILR section where you have 4 or 5 questions which follow. This can be done there, but for a QA where the return is just one question, it makes sense to look at other questions before. Yeah, I think over to you, Bhaskar.
Okay, so like this is the first question. So now this is a question, either you know the concept or you don't. You don't need to waste time if you don't know the concept. So like for any quadrilateral, we can extend it. Like for a triangle, we have sum of 2 sides should be greater than the third side. So similar concept in the quadrilateral also, sum of the 3 sides should be greater than the 4th side. So if we take the 4th side as x, so sum of the 3 sides, these 3 sides, 1 plus 2 plus 4. So x should be less than 7. And if we take the largest side as 4, then 1 plus 2 plus x should be greater than 4. That means x should be greater than 1. So values of x which are possible are 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So now, like we were saying about the small mistakes, so some people might not count the values. They might mark either 6, 5, 6, 4, or 3. But here, like they are asking the number of values, total number of values. Okay, so the correct answer will be 5. Okay, now this is a PNC question, and I'm sure many of the people, just by looking at it, they must have left it. So like for me, PNC was, I was comfortable in that topic. So I read it like this: the arithmetic mean of all the distinct numbers that can be obtained by rearranging the digits of 1, 4, 2, 1, including its. So okay. Now, when I'm reading it, I'm seeing 1 is repeated twice. Okay. And there are 4 digits in total given. So number of numbers that can be formed here is 12. Okay. Now, in those 12 numbers, the unit digits of 6 numbers will be having 1. In the unit digits of 6 numbers, there will be 1. In the unit digit of 3 numbers, there will be 2. And the unit digit of 3 numbers will have 4. Now, similar trend will happen with the tens, hundreds, and the thousands digit. Okay. So if we add them, so 6 into 1 is 6, 3 into 2 is 6, and 4 into 3 is 12. So if we add them, we are getting 24. So the units digit is 24. We write 4, and the tens digit also summation, if we do, it will be 24, and we get the carry over as 2. So the sum will be 2,662. Okay. Now you will need to find the arithmetic. Now see what we can do. We are getting the last digit as 4. Now 12 numbers are there, and 12 multiplied by 2 ends with last digit 4, and 12 multiplied by 7 ends with last digit 4. So you can see if there is only one option, which has got 2 in that, so you can mark that and move ahead. Okay, but here we have got 3 options, so you need to solve it. I think the answer is option B.
Yeah, and the other thing is that it will be a multiple of 1, 1, 1, 1, because we will be multiplying the 24 for each positions, right?
Yeah.
So that also eliminated 2 options.
Yeah.
Was that point clear?
Guys, we can make this interactive if you have any conceptual, because yeah, I mean, we can help you out in case we are able to.
Okay, so Himanshu, what we are doing is we are finding the sum of all the possible numbers for each of the positions. So when one will be in the units place, we are finding all the permutations of the other numbers in all the other positions. And then since there are no zeros in the number, this trend will be same across all the positions. So essentially the sum will be a fixed number into 1, 1, 1, 1. Yeah, I think he's got it.
Yeah, okay, moving on to the next one.
Now this is a question which was perhaps the easiest question in the entire 3 slots. Okay, now as Avi mentioned one thing, like when you're reading, you read the question in entirety. Don't just reading one line and start jotting down points. Now, if anyone was starting and jotting down points and solving it, they would have taken at least 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes to solve it. But anyone who has read it completely, it would hardly take them 10 seconds to mark the answer. It is a question like you're reading the question and marking the answer. It is nothing but 1.5 hours into 60. Everything is given. And literally, I know faculties who have solved this question. Like they have devoted 1.5 to 2 minutes. Okay. Now this is a question from geometry. So like in a triangle ABC, AB equals to this. A circle is drawn with BC as diameter passes through A. Another circle drawn with center A passes through B and C. The area in the square centimeter of the overlapping region. Okay. Now I am seeing there are too many variables first. Like I have to draw the diagram and then I have to do the summation, find the areas, and then common overlapping areas I have to find. So mentally I'm processing that it will take me a lot of time. So for me, this is a tough category question, and I will only comment, try it if I don't have any other question left. Okay. So this is a round 3 question. Okay. Now, question number 50. So now this question, like this type of questions becomes difficult when it comes in theta. Had there been options, like I would have gone for round 1, but since there are no options, and whenever there is a maximum possible number or minimum possible number, so like generally people tend to make mistakes because it is the margin of error is very slim. So even though I have done this type of questions, even though I'm comfortable, but since like it is a bit time consuming and also it is a theta question, so I would have I went for this question in round. And I know many of my friends also, like they missed the answer by 1 or 2. Like the correct answer is 12 for this question. Some of them have marked 11, some have marked 12, and devoted at least 4 to 5 minutes in this question. Okay. So if anyone wants me to try this question, I can try, but
I think we'll spend a few more minutes on individual questions. So I think
Yeah.
अच्छा, इसके बाद, is there any other side?
No. I think we just had one. I think this is pretty much done. I think, but just to reiterate that you need to be prepared for uncertainties, even though we have given you everything. Okay, these are the typical topics and these are everything that can come. But again, the number of questions can change. So to put things to perspective, from 2019 to 20, the entire thing changed. Then from 2020 to 2021, CAT just released one notification that given that students had difficulty in attempting 76 questions, we will reduce the number of questions. But what will be that reduction was not disclosed. What will be the split is not disclosed. So you need to be prepared. And again, it can jolly well come up the very next month that we are reverting to the 3-hour format, or even in the 2-hour format, they can come up with say 66 questions, but the split can change across the 3 sections. So all of these things you need to take it with a pinch of salt and be prepared that anything can happen on the D-Day. The difficulty level can increase, decrease. I mean, typically what we have seen across CAT is that there will be one section which will be more difficult as compared to others. And you can never go with a certainty that, okay, this section, it will be QA this year, or it will be DILR, or it will be VARC. So all of this is very relative. And again, the traditional weightage of topics, again, as we mentioned, that 2022 saw an increase in the number of questions from algebra, modern maths, and other topics. But that actually, kind of gets reflected in the percentiles as well. So you need to take all of these things also into consideration.
Yeah, and just to answer Sneha's question here. So Sneha, firstly, the shortcut, actually, don't go for shortcuts. Trust me, it's a bad idea to go for shortcuts if there are any. And solving the questions in under a minute doesn't come from learning shortcuts. It comes from doing the same steps so many times that you already know that you don't have to start at step 1 to 10. Like if there's a step 1 to 10 in solving a question, you've done it so many times that you're already starting at step 3, and then you're going to step 8. And by the time you're at step 8, you realize, okay, option number C is the answer, because A, B, and D are not possible now that I'm at step 8. So that's how we are able to solve in under 60 minutes, like 60 seconds. And it's not by learning any formulas.
I completely agree with Avi. Like, there are no shortcuts. It is just that with enough practice, you start seeing the steps ahead, what the steps are, and you can skip them, the steps in the bit.
To answer
Please
question,
avoid these clickbait videos that tell you to go for these shortcuts, because these faculties that are pitching you these shortcuts, they have like 10, 20 years of experience, and I think it
Right, CAT every year.
come up with these.
We write CAT every year, and some of them only end up scoring 100%.
Yeah.
Right?
and
Go ahead, Abhi. Yeah.
For Harshit's question, Harshit, you can start with any topic. You have to do all of them anyways. So start with arithmetic.
Yeah, I would say that you should start with number system, because number system forms a base for a lot of topics that follow.
Yeah,
that is just my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Modern maths should include like typically this, but yes, I don't know how you categorize set theories in algebra, modern maths. I think that's fluid. I mean, wherever
Yeah.
you want to take Venn diagram is also typically you would get a one question in CAT from that as well. But probably yes, PNC probability are the major things in modern maths.
Yeah, and I found Rodha's YouTube channel to be pretty exhaustive in terms of covering the syllabus. So you can use that.
So trigonometry does not often comes, but when it comes, the questions are very easy. They are basically on very simple area formulas or something like
Heights and
that.
distances is
Yeah.
another favorite.
If you have any longer questions, you can raise your hand and you can give it your
Yeah.
unmute
Yeah.
yourself and go ahead.
Yeah, Vipul.
Yeah, so again, I have a few questions lined up. So for number system, like from my analysis, I've seen that the basic questions that people are taught, which are the remainder theorem and all those things, aren't technically asked in the CAT exams from like 5 to 6 years. I haven't seen any question from that very directly. We have questions that A, B, C are 3 digits, so and so. So should we rather practice such questions from number system? That is my foremost question. And for algebra, what I am
Vipul, like ask one question, that will be better.
I'll take this up.
Yeah.
So as I said, number system forms a base for a lot of topics, and I think you should develop this. You should go for it. A lot of these divisibility rules, remainder theorem, you find these applications even in DILR sets, right? And these sometimes do help you come up with your own methods to solve questions faster. And this does form a good baseline to start off your or kick off your preparation if you just started.
And just to add on to Mridul's point here, I think I have seen a fair number of remainder theorem, like questions that use remainder theorem. I could be wrong. I don't remember the questions, but
Yeah, but then I think
Do occur in mocks.
but yes, but I think I think to a certain extent, I do agree that certain theorems like Wilson's theorem, Fermat's Little theorem, I think these are not going to be very actively we see there in the actual calculations. We don't see that very
Yeah,
frequently.
I mean, these are very specific theorems,
Yeah.
but CRT really works, Chinese remainder theorem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So as Anirudh sir said, actually I do get intimidated after seeing that I was not able to attempt such so and so question from number system. But even though I know that it might not come in CAT, so that why I was asking that question.
First of all, I think you shouldn't think that way. I mean, CAT, we have been saying this again, even though we agree that past trends do suggest that certain things might not come. For example, a pure statistics question doesn't come, but then there are questions which use median mean. I remember in CAT 2020-21, these questions do come which form as part of concepts. So you might as well get a sitter question from these topics as well. But you should try to treat the 22 questions as a question bank and see how you can maximize these scores. And it's always going to be a plus if you get that question in the exam.
Vivek, you
I
can
will-
ask. I'll ask later.
I will just add one more thing. Vipul, like in 2020 slot 3, specifically slot 3, there were 3 questions on coordinate geometry. In slot 1 and 2, there weren't. Okay, and coordinate geometry did not used to come in the past years. So don't think that they can't come, they won't come. Because like CAT does not prescribe any particular syllabus for quants also. Okay.
Yeah, Vivek.
Yeah, Vivek, go ahead.
Yeah. So my question was like while practicing the mocks and the sections, so while going through the QA section, QA questions again, I find that there were some questions which were actually stickers and I could have solved them. So while watching the mentor solutions, I feel that, okay, this could have been done in a certain amount of time. So like, I mean, how should we go about revising them?
Revising what exactly?
I mean the questions which comes in mocks. Like if you're not able to solve it in the first time.
So what I used to do is there are some questions that I did not know how to solve, like concepts I got to know from the mocks, or maybe some interesting concept that I solved and there was a different method. So I used to maintain a separate book with like the formula book, where I used to write those questions and the solutions down. And before the CAT and even before every mock, I used to just go through all of those questions again. And that's a very good way to revise. So maintain that book.
Yes, definitely agreed with Abhi. Like there will be many concepts which you will know through questions, and do keep a note of those. Yeah, thank you.
Anmol.
Yes, like apart from Mridul, most of you guys have attempted CAT earlier as well. So like I just wanted to ask a general question. Is it like really, how much is it possible to gain like 99 plus in the first attempt? Because this is my first attempt. So is that possible? Is it tough? Like how much effort do I need to put in front?
Mridul should answer this, I think then.
Like
I'll just put things into perspective. A lot of these folks did have a 99 plus before also, but they chose to write it again. So it is not really very tough. It is, you just have to be in the top 2000 people. And a lot of that comes from the mindset that you develop throughout the practice season, right? If you're doing well, or even if you're not doing well, if you stay motivated throughout the season, and if you believe in yourself that you can do it, I think that is the first and foremost thing that you should be doing, along with practicing.
Okay, what would be your daily schedule would look like? Like, how much do you practice LR and how much do you time devote on daily basis on these things?
Okay, so that would depend upon my schedule for that day. So I was a full-time college student. My college timings were somewhere from 10:30 to 5:30. But mostly on second half, my classes were used to be off because there used to be seminars and stuff, which were not very compulsory for us to attend. So for me, most of my preparation, June, July onwards, was through mocks. I was not practicing anything else. I was just getting a lot of mocks or a lot of sectional tests. So yeah, that is how I planned my own strategy that I should be giving a lot of mocks and I actually did not spend a lot of time analyzing them as well. I had my own set of ways to go about it, but yeah, I did not analyze mocks because when I used to analyze mocks, I used to overanalyze them, and I had that baggage while giving the next mock that this is the mistake that I made. I should be more careful, and that would end up me taking more time in that. So everyone has their own approaches, but for me, analysis was not the main part of my preparation strategy. It was to coming up with new techniques or to developing a habit of trying new things throughout my journey, where I could incorporate them in my own D-Day as well. Like I did the set that I could not do properly in the LRDI section. I did do it on the D-Day in 7 minutes. So yeah.
Thank you so much, guys.
Yeah, Shruti.
Go ahead.
Hi. So I've just began my preparation like a month or two back, and I'm not quite familiar with quant because a lot of time has passed by, and I'm not in touch with maths. So most of the coaching classes and online people say that you need to practice questions, like say you take Arun Sharma, LOD1, LOD2, you need to go through it at least twice or thrice, and like along with mocks and sections. So I wanted to know what was your opinion on it.
So I have attended Arun Sharma's classes in my very first attempt, 2019 campus. He does say that, yes, I don't follow that strategy. I follow that strategy that till the point you are comfortable with the topic, you should do it, and you'll get a sense that you're now comfortable with the topic, right? If you are having that confusion, it means you're not comfortable with that topic.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So once you have that comfort level, you can stop practicing that, because it's not about being able to solve a question. It's about being able to solve that question in the test time frame. And you do not develop the second ability with just solving higher and more difficult questions.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Thanks.
I would just like to add one thing, that if QA is not your strength, then try to maximize on the other two sections, because you could look at my split. It was like 93, 100, and it went up to 99.99, right? For some other people, it might be 98, 99, and a 99, which is taking them past 99.5. So even if you're not very good at one of the three sections, whichever it could be, you have to maximize in the other two sections.
Correct.
Don't really bother so much. I mean, obviously you should try to maximize, but don't let it pull you back, or this is pulling me back.
Yeah, correct. Got it. Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah, Vipul, I think you can ask your other question since your hand is still raised.
Yeah. So basically, my question is for algebra. So I've been practicing a lot with algebra, and like from past year, I knew that okay, algebra screwed up my last attempt, and then I want to capitalize over it, that whatever the things I can read, I read and then solve a lot. But then even after doing all that, there are a few questions that whenever I see them, I feel that okay, I can't solve them, and when I see the solution, then I feel that okay, I have solved that earlier. There is a mental barrier that I'm not able to break with algebra, that okay, I can solve so and so questions. So like each and every other subtopic of QA I'm very familiar with, but algebra, I don't know, even after so much practice, I'm not able to get comfy with it. Yeah.
Okay, just one question. Let's take it. So Bipul, you said that you look at the solution. So
yeah,
you look at the solution after again solving it?
Yeah, sir. Actually, I first solved the question, and after 1 week, I redo it. As you mentioned, that was something that one of my mentor told me, that okay, don't look at the solutions right away. So I redo the questions 1 week later. So, and even after doing that, if I'm not able to solve, then I go to the solutions.
I think you have a mental bias.
barrier.
Barrier or bias towards it, because it's just bias that feeds on itself. You have a doubt, so you have a doubt, so you have a doubt, so you have a doubt, right? What you'll have to do is like no amount of practice will remove this doubt from you. The successful victories, small victories that you have over this will actually remove this doubt. So when you attempt a mock you perform decently in that, then you attempt another mock, you perform decently in algebra or arithmetic, whatever you have allowed you. If you solve decently in every successive mock successfully in that section, eventually that bias will go away. So it's not that you don't have enough practice or you're not following the right process. It's just a mental barrier, at least what I can see right now.
Yeah, also just to remind one thing, whenever you are changing your strategy, try to apply it first in a section, because in a mock you won't be able to apply it completely. Okay, so try to apply it first in a section.
I think one point I want to just share candidly in my journey, especially that happened in my first attempt, is that and that was a mistake I did. So I had subscribed to Times mock series, and I don't know whether it's true and other people will agree, but for me, I think Times mock series for QA was unfathomably sometimes difficult. I think their QA sections in the mocks are quite bit harder, and what that did was also play a role in my performance. So again, I think it's similar point that you shouldn't take your mock scores very to your heart, and the escape to that was actually looking at CAT past year papers. If you look at CAT past year papers, and I think the exercise that we did today, even if you get these 15 questions in one slot, they aren't that difficult. You would, as we explained, you can easily crack like 8 to 9 questions, and this is the level that is going to be in the exam. It's not going to change very drastically. Yes, the split and the kind of questions might change, but then the difficulty level or the basic idea behind testing quantitative ability will not change, and hence you should go with this mindset that if you have done enough preparation, 50% is not at all a big deal. You can easily do 50% of this section.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Hi, Avi, Harmal here. So basically, I had two questions for you all. First of all, while solving mocks, by the time I get to the QA section, my mind is drained out, and there are a lot of times I ended up doing silly mistakes. And adding to that point, when you're not able to solve quant and you realize that you're doing silly mistakes, there is a lot of pressure on your mind, and you ended up not solving the easy one as well. So, how do you challenge yourself and how do you solve that particular issue with yourself?
I mean, it's a simple solution. You just need more practice, and you have to get accustomed to sitting there for like 2 or 3 hours. There's no other simple way that you practice for 4 hours, so you'll be very well focused in 2 hours. That also does not happen. I think for me, it's just getting used to the mock scenario so many times, and by the time you take the CAT, you would have done like what 60-70 mocks.
Correct.
I think that's enough practice to wrap your sort of not get okay, this will never happen that you'll not get tired at the beginning of the section or at the end of the section. We all feel that fatigue. In fact, I barely had enough energy after the mock to do anything because it was so mentally draining. So that has happened. I mean, for me, it's a part of the journey.
Okay.
So for QA, especially if you want to improve, like what I used to do, I used to attempt the QA sectional after just before going to sleep when I am tired.
Okay.
Because I know that on the exam day, QA will come as a third section, and after a heavy DILR, my brain is going to be tired. So you can try that also.
Yeah, and what worked for me was that I actually suffered that the hard way by ruining the first attempt. So the working for this thing was either I had 2 scenarios prepared, that if I know that DILR, I'll end 30. So I used to keep 1 minute gap. So that would be basically a 30 second split between DILR and QA. You can see the timer on the screen, right? So once you know that, okay, there are 20 seconds left for DILR, you stop and, just don't look at the screen, you drop your pen, just calm yourself. You just tell yourself that, okay, this section is over. And even when the QA starts, you can afford to give yourself 20-30 seconds. Like I did that. And that really helped me sail through this attempt because I did not carry anything from the previous section to the next section. So you can also take like a 10, 20, 30 second break in the exam, because CAT, unlike other competitive exams, doesn't give you breaks. You can take that break for yourself. I don't think 20-30 seconds is that much of a big ask, if that helps you.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Anirudh has a very valid point. I used to do this in mocks, just remembered. From VARC to DILR, I used to like 10-15 seconds. If you just close your eyes and sort of just breathe deeply, that helps me quite a bit. Like very, very deep breaths. In the actual CAT, what happened was there's so much energy all around and there's so much anxiety, all of that, you don't feel this fatigue at times. But for the CAT, the DILR section, since I was attempting the last two questions very, like, I had to attempt more, I did not get that 10-15 second gap. So I took the time from QA to take that 10-15 second gap, and then I started the QA section.
Okay.
So, like those 10-15 seconds, although that's time wasted, but overall that helps you in the section. So it's like an investment.
All right. Thank you.
Any other questions, guys? Okay, I think we can wrap things up.
I just have one more question.
Yeah,
Am I
sure.
audible? Yeah. Okay. So we're talking about these mental barriers, and I think Avi Bhai raised a very good point that it's not about doing those questions, but rather doing it in the time frame. So I think I personally have those biases, I guess, in probability and PNC, and this is because of some experience back in 12 days of my 12. So is there any specific sort of a plan you would say, or specific sort of things that you guys did to overcome these things on certain topics? I mean, specific to PNC and probability. If you guys can share that.
Okay, so let me take that. So for PNC, if you want to do, like, I would say do the basic questions. Like, you don't have to go to the advanced concepts. Okay, and did you had PNC and probability in class 11th and 12th also?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, so like 11th and 12th, the PNC and probability, they go into depth. Okay, CAT does not ask such questions. Like, the questions which they will ask are very simple. It's not that tough. So do the basics, and like, you don't need to factor that you have to attempt PNC and probability questions all in the box. Try to solve one questions if you get time. Okay, and with time and practice, I think it will the mental barrier for the topics will do.
And just to add on to Bhaskar's point here, I think CAT rarely asks probability questions. It asks more PNC questions. So just on the topic of PNC, if let's say a question like, I would generally place PNC questions in type the bucket B rather than bucket A or C. C maybe aa jayega sometimes, but rarely A. And when it comes under type B, let's say a question like, they'll give you a word and then say what is the position in the dictionary. That's the type of question. So the problem here is, if you fuck up one step, then the whole question goes down the drain, right? So I used to be very careful in writing the steps, and yes, PNC is a problem. At least for me, it was a problem when it comes to accuracy.
It was. I think I can completely relate. And for me as well, I think even though Mridul said a number system is the first topic, I actually almost left that topic when I went for CAT, because that topic was just too much for me to take in. And I think those are set kind of individual calls you take to kind of tweak your strategy, because at the end of the day, we are saying that QA is the third part of the exam, and it's good to have basic. You need to actually clear the sectional cutoffs as well. But then again, it's the whole of the paper that's going to count, and it's the actual overall percentile that's going to make all the difference. So that small calls you need to take. It's okay to not be the best at all topics.
Yeah, like, we don't have a sort of a Brahmastra kind of a solution for everything. We have weak topics. Like, my number systems was weak for me. PNC was also weak for me. So yeah, you play on your strengths.
So if QA is 1K and I want to have a 50-meter boundary in terms of PNC and probability, so what are the basic resources that you would suggest that where should I learn it from? I mean,
Sorry,
I have learned it.
Sorry, I didn't get the first part of your sentence.
No, I'm just making a point. My question is are there any, I mean, which are the best resources you would suggest for me to learn PNC and probability if I have to learn it from, learn the basic concepts specifically for these two topics?
For basic concepts, go with Rhoda YouTube channel. That's the best for all concepts for the basics.
For me,
Like
it was
covering the
NCERT,
syllabus.
yeah. I think NCERT works well.
Yeah, for self-paced learners who can go through books and don't need YouTube, even Arun Sharma does a great job at clearing your basics.
Yeah, Harman, go ahead.
Makes sense.
Also, one more thing, apart from maintaining a formula book, did you also maintain a book called as a conceptual book where you suppose you pick up a topics, for example, average allocation and mixtures, and you would jot down few types of questions that you're poor at, or which you find very difficult to, and you basically write an approach on how do I approach these things. Is having a book, parallelly to a formula book, more helpful?
Sure,
whatever
it will
helps
be
your
if
case,
you
yeah.
would be referring to it every now and then. A lot of people have these books, but they never end up going back to them. If you
Okay.
feel that it can help you, then you should surely maintain one.
No,
Yeah.
so it's different for me. So I used to personally have a book of mistakes. And at the same time, when you sign up for these mock providers, they also give you the option to bookmark certain questions. So some of the QA questions where I went wrong, I used to bookmark them, and regularly I used to flip through them. Especially in the month of November, this book of mistakes I found to be personally quite helpful, and it helped me to avoid some silly mistakes on the D-Day. So definitely they are helpful if you maintain them
I
properly.
think those tools also, Shaparno, which Varnit mentioned that, I think IMS has this where you practice similar questions which you have bookmarked. I think you have that option where you have the same concept getting repeated with different figures, and they also increase the difficulty. It's an easy, then I think one medium, and then the difficult one comes in. So that actually helps in clearing your concepts. If you bookmark that category of questions, you get an easy, medium, and difficult version of that as well.
Okay.
Just to add to this, CL also has a deep down analysis feature where you get your accuracy topic wise for the different types of topics like time and time, speed, distance, for work. Basically, across all their mocks, all the questions are categorized, and then you see your accuracy being mapped to you and showed to you. So that is also a very helpful feature that I found out.
Okay. And one last thing, so I'm having a very average academics in my past. I know it's not related to QA, but how much should you basically aim for as a good percentage?
Maximum.
Okay.
Go for 100.
Any one of you had bad, average academics?
Everyone had their flaws. Everyone in our panels had their flaws in their profiles in some way or the other.
Okay.
I think, see, there's no point in dwelling over past things which have happened. And irrespective of whether you are a 10-10-10 profiler, which is virtually non-existent, or you have a 7-7-7 profile, you still need to try to get the maximum score in CAT, because the good marks will never hurt your candidature. Why do you want to target the minimum? Always target the highest, even if you have the best academic profile.
Right? If you can sort of get 100 marks, you wouldn't stop at 90, right? Because you don't need it.
Yeah.
So always try to get the highest there.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. I think we can stop now. So thank you all for coming. I hope these 4 sessions were valuable. I think all of us tried to put as much effort as we could.
We too are amateurs. I mean, we are not the great veterans. I mean, obviously, we did in the first attempt, for some in the third or fourth attempt. Something or the other did work, but we all had our fair share of struggles. It does not come easy. I think that is one thing which is constant. You cannot say, I actually came up with someone who said, to a fresher, oh my God, yeah, you were so lucky you got it in the first attempt. No. The fresher is not lucky you got it in the first attempt. The fresher did do everything, or maybe did not do everything right, but he or she was willing to put that effort to make it happen in the first time. So you need to, it's not going to be an easy journey, but then it's going to be a journey where you will need to take effort, and we tried to put that under these 4 sessions. But yeah.
And try to enjoy this journey.
Yeah. And if anyone
And I
has any
think-
stress or anxiety, they can always reach out to me because I was in the same boat and I know how it feels.
And before we wrap up, I would just point out one thing. So last year, I was in a very similar position as all of you. I attended ABCs of ABC Season 2. And this year, I'm a panelist. So I just hope that all of you can, replicate that story as well next year and be on the panel. So all the best.
All the best.
And a big,
All the
big
best.
shout out to Team Inside IIM for organizing this.
Yeah, and Divine, thanks for all the support that you and Rishabh and everyone has been giving us.
Thanks very
No
much.
worries.
For providing
No worries.
this opportunity and
Thank you,
platform.
Devan.
No
Thank you,
worries.
Devan.
So everyone, please give a big round of applause for all the mentors. I mean, they're just about to join their B schools in the next 2 weeks, and they have taken out the time to, do this 4-session program to help you all. I'm a part of that WhatsApp group where they have been discussing how to prepare. They sent the assignment last night around 1:30 in the morning, right? So they have put in so much effort just to help you also. Please give a big round of applause to everyone. I don't think Varnit, Tanaya, and Sarthak, they're not here, but thank you so much, everyone. I mean, I have been attending, this is the 3rd time I have attended the ABCs of ABC, the 3rd year rather. So this has been the best season, and I hope that the participants make the most of it. So also to everyone in the WhatsApp group, Rishabh, my colleague, he will post the LinkedIn profiles of all the mentors. So in case you feel that there's a need to reach out to them, please feel free to do that, right? But one small request from my side, this is not from the mentors. Please understand that the first term at a B school will be very, very hectic. So unless and until it's extremely urgent, please don't ping them. So you can ping on the group and we can also pass on the message. So yeah. Once again, thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of the 3rd season of ABCs of ABC. And again, big round of applause to all the mentors. And okay, all the best to everyone for CAT 2023. Yeah.
Thank you.
All the
Thank you.
best.
Thank you.
And all the
Thank
best,
you. All
guys.
the best, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.